I work at Cottonwood Center for the Arts, and any of us, and Jasmine here, we all get a little bit like stuck in our own space because we work so hard. But my little side hustle to pay for my studio rent is to put up vinyl lettering. Like, I get to put up my own name, which was really weird. But I've been doing that for these ladies for like 5 or 6 years. And I couldn't believe it when they told me that they were inviting me to actually show my art here. I'm so honored, and Christy's amazing show. I can't believe I'm in the same space. Anyway, thank you. I feel like it's hard to talk about, as Christy was saying, yourself and like why should someone pay attention to me. So I'm just going to start with a little history because I think that every one of us can relate to just the absurdity of time and space in a continuum of years, the like crazy opportunities that we're all afforded, and the ones we take and the ones we discard. So I can really say that this show started in 1997 because I got the chance to put gold leaf on the exterior dome of the San Francisco City Hall building when it was in its earthquake preparedness retrofit project. They basically put like giant springs under the building so that when an earthquake happens in San Francisco, it just goes woo, and everyone's safe inside. But that meant that the older parts of the building needed to be unmoored from their original moors, and that included the roof. So I got the chance to put gold leaf on this copper sheet metal for about like 8 months. It was outside. It was about 16 stories up in the air. We were wearing like harnesses and coveralls, and the little team of gold leafers, we were 5 women, and things back then weren't even designed for women in that sort of work environment. For instance, there was a porta potty on the roof below the dome that had no roof of its own. So if you were working up higher, you're just like looking down into this toilet. And we were wearing coveralls, and in order to pee as a lady, you got to strip down. So we learned how to pee in a cup, and it was that kind of job, and it was amazing. But also, like, as like bizarre and unexpected, it was also really zen. So gold leafing is, clean, paint, glue, and then stick the gold. And it was just those 4 steps every single day, day after day, for 8 months. And it was so peaceful and beautiful, and such a beautiful way to honor the surface of a thing. So I really fell in love with the experience of preparing and finishing a surface before even putting my own ego into it. And I just have really held on to that for better or for worse. I was accused once in another like little gallery show that I had in Denver. It was a group show, so just one piece, but I was showing pictures to the bartender of my other work, and he said, "Your work is very singular," which I don't think was a compliment. He was like, "You really stuck to an idea." But when Gundy and Abby invited me to do this bigger series where I wasn't just working on one thing at a time, I really was excited to think about thinking harder about what I was doing. And that sort of gave me the chance to add more and also isolate spaces that were quieter and spaces that were more lush. So that was kind of the beginning idea of this show, was not just to make a like focused, concentrated, elaborate, detailed, you know, hyper fixated space, but to also create a space around that concentration to give us a chance to step back from it and allow it to kind of be more approachable. So what I started with for this sort of lush space, my inspiration was fabric patterns, and all of the patterns in these paintings are based on items of clothing or even just art supplies, in a couple instances, just objects that had pattern that made me feel a certain way. And I was interested in how that feeling might change when it's taken out of my closet or my bathroom or wherever those places live. So all of these sort of paintings within a painting have a story for me, but the fact that they aren't rooted in anyone else's experience, I was just sort of excited to see like how people might feel about it. So all of these pieces have a very specific story for me, and I'll tell you about just a couple of them. This piece over here with the bunnies, that one is probably the most like poignant piece in the whole show for me. So even though it's like these sort of cartoon rabbits, the clothing that it comes from is a child's kimono that I bought in a thrift store when I lived in San Francisco, that I used to wear as a shirt, obviously. And after San Francisco, I moved to New Orleans, and that's where I married my now husband. And I actually was just back in in New Orleans for the first time since Hurricane Katrina this weekend. But when we evacuated for the storm, my husband had just finished EMT school, so he went back to help rescue people, and he brought back these pictures of people's belongings and actual bodies like floating in the water. And that pattern for me, it just really evokes this like literal memory of how people sort of shore up and hold hands and come together in such a serious time, even when things are sort of cast adrift. So while I don't expect other people to have that feeling when they see this painting, I guess my hope is that my feelings are somehow just sort of sewn into it. And I could probably say something like that for every one of these, but in fact, I'm in big trouble with my husband because he was really happy about our belongings getting lighter when we left. And I am the hoarder in our relationship. So now that we've been here for almost 20 years, I have a lot of boxes of things. Yes, so all of this, it's, I think, birchwood panel. I found this amazing supplier in Canada. And artists among you hit me up for the source because it was very affordable, which was great. So yeah, start with like untreated, basically plywood, but like nice plywood. Um, I do black gesso, and the reason I do black is because the gold leaf, or actually I use 3 different kinds of leaf amongst these. It comes in squares about this size, and you put it on like tile in a grid. Um, it's almost impossible to not have this microscopic little seam in between it, and I love that about it. And it shows through, and there's a lot of different sort of age-old techniques that other artists throughout history have developed. In the old days, the way gold leaf was applied was actually with clay. So you brush like this beautiful red, think of like the French Open, like red clay. The gold goes on there, not even with glue. It actually sticks more with static electricity if you want to get into the science of it. Burnished with a tool and then touched up. So for, I think, a lot of, at least in Western art, gold leaf was supposed to be very perfect. It was used in a lot of like religious art applications as, you know, just a way to exalt the holy. Yeah. So those cracks are like, I don't know, I love them, but like they're like someone would smite me maybe in another time for leaving them open. But anyway, that's why I use the black gesso, because every now and then there's this little crack that I just love. So then the raw leaf is there. For this series, I use something called Dutch metal, which is basically sheet brass. So that one is an example, because you can see in the corner there, it is sort of gold looking. The one next to it, I use copper. These two, I use aluminum, which is basically, you know, imitation silver. And the metals that can oxidize, like copper and brass, like we all have things that, you know, like a watering can or whatever you have that's brass or copper. If you have it long enough, it turns to verdigris, like the sort of greenish grayish color like you associate with the roofs of cathedrals in Europe where they're untreated. And I also think that's beautiful. If you leave it like that, like without oil paint on top of it, it will turn because there are oxidants in the air and all around us. Once you put oil paint on top of it, though, that's a protective layer. I also put varnish on top of everything, and I haven't lived long enough to see if that will oxidize someday. They say that it won't. So maybe it'll make things more valuable. I would never say this before I was close to being done, not to give Abby and Gundy a heart attack, but procrastination is a part of my process. Sorry. No, but I make way better artistic decisions if I leave things to a point where I don't have time to question myself. So I did a lot of stuff in the last 4 weeks because so many of these pattern choices are based on items of clothing and belongings. I have to say, like, it's my personal style. It's what I like to wear. So the weird thing is that obviously, like, someone else made that design originally, right? So I'm actually like borrowing. But then I think of like sort of like late impressionists who painted rooms where you saw wallpaper and like dresses and these other like very personal items sort of laid flat. And I feel like I understand those choices. I did not intend to make this like a Asian influence show, but I have heard from a lot of people like, oh, that's what you're doing. Oh, really? So yeah, I going back to the idea of lush as sort of a word to begin the thought process. Um, this kind of imagery was hyper concentrated in terms of color and like thread count and composition, and I wanted to like pair that with sort of expansive background and like sort of a depth of plane to make them even more just like intense. And I will think more about the Asian side of that and get back to you. In terms of putting the most luscious material in the background in the Lush show, I think I have to go back to that original idea of preparing the surface. It feels almost like a ritual, this very methodical and quiet and systematic, just laying down of something beautiful before you even begin. I found to be really important as a point of getting to work. Well, the great thing about actual gold is that it doesn't oxidize, and that's why it's at least the former basis of our currency. You don't even have to put varnish on it, but it's very expensive right now, so I didn't use it as a show. Well, thank you all so much for coming, and I'm just blessed to be in this community and in the presence of artists like Christy and the other artists here. You all are the best.